Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? Well, I want to start with you, Michael. Being a mystery writer and seeing Castle on the air, do you at all identify with his character?
Yeah, I identify in some ways, and then in other ways, I view him almost as a fantasy figure of what I wish my life was like, you know. But I do totally get the part of what he's doing of trying to bring realism to his books by hanging out with the cops. I just don't hang out with cops that are as pretty as Beckett, but it's something I do. When I'm doing my research and so forth, I'm more of an observer. I've been on a few things. One time I was with cops and they got a call and they were screaming down streets. They went right through a car wash and things like that. That could be a good scene in one of the.
That could be a good scene.
But it rarely happens. It's more like I see what I see, get what I got to get, and then I go back and write it in my own little private Idaho.
Now, how much does that research inform what you're writing? Do you go in with a point of view, and are you looking for specific things, or are you open to changing your story given what you learn?
It depends. As you guys all know, people in this world are good storytellers. And so I try to put myself in a position where I can hear stories and wait for inspiration. I find that 80% of the things I write about are inspired by a verbal story. Someone telling me a story that they had a part in, you know, that meant something to them. That fires me up.
Okay, Mr. Mystery Writer Man, what's your best-selling theory?
I'm gonna go with The Butler.
The Butler?
That's what we always go with when we run out of ideas.
And what about a twist?
Where's the twist?
Yeah.
Actually, Castle, she was a writer.
A writer? Why would anyone want to kill a writer?
Oh, so many reasons.
Michael, I'm just curious, you know, in the process of your writing, how much attention you pay consciously or subconsciously to painting the world that the characters are in?
You know, I don't know what it is, whether it's the way I was raised or something, but I was raised on TV and movies, and I was about 20 when I decided to become a writer. And so most of my, I think, creative cues came from visual forms of film and TV. And so when I'm writing my books, I start with a visual, and then I kind of synthesize it down to words. And I see everything in my head, and I hear the conversations, I see the people talking to each other and all that, and I kind of just try to describe what I'm seeing. It's kind of weird or interesting in that I recently had a film made on one of my books, and so this thing started as visual in my head. I bring it down to words, and then now it's gone visual through someone else's hands. And it's an interesting process to go through when you started out on the visual side in the first place.
What was your decision to get started writing?
Being inspired by a film, actually, The Long Goodbye, Robert Altman's take on Philip Marlowe, Raymond Chandler's classic book. I saw that when I was in college, and that led me to the books, and then reading the books led me to say, hey, I want to try to do this.
And how about you, Brian? What got you started?
Well, you know what? I was one of those comic book nerd kids, but you know, my mom brought me a big pile of comics, and I was sucked into the world of Marvel Comics. And just one day, I decided to flip to the front of the book to see who was responsible for this amazing experience I just had, and then I started memorizing the names of the creators, and I go, I'm going to do that. And I literally would just announce that I was now a comic creator. I was like 6 years old, and I just said, just so you know, I'm going to be working for Marvel Comics, and I'll be writing Spider-Man. And only my mom knows how insane it is that I'm actually writing Spider-Man, and have been for the last 10 years. Because there was nothing that was going to stop me from doing it other than the fact that I had no ability to make that happen. But as I got older, you really discover the world of graphic novels, not just, oh my God, Spider-Man's cool. It's, oh my God, this is an art form that has changed my life already, and now I have to be part of it. I have to do this. I have to make them. And I went to art school, and I started writing and drawing my own graphic novels.
Whose idea was it to bring in the poker game and a cast of real
It was
writers?
actually an idea that I had in the beginning, because as a writer, I wanted to honor writers. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to, A, legitimize Richard Castle by surrounding him with a peer group that everybody knew and recognized, people like you, people like James Patterson, people like Dennis Lehane, that it would help legitimize him and make him feel more real to the audience. But also, it felt to me like we had the ability to further story with it. Where he would be stuck on a case and he'd be talking about the case as if it were a story problem. And his friends, Steve Cannell, you could say, you know, if I were writing this story, here's what I would be looking at. And it's just kind of a clever way to extend the storytelling and have a different kind of conjecture than what you normally see.
What I like about it is anytime writers get together, no one knows another writer's BS than the other writer.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all know each other's weak points and strong points, even if you're known for your weak point. If it makes you very successful.
And when we're faking
the other
it,
writers,
when we're trying to get away,
they all know it, and that's what I like about those scenes. Are almost entirely about them just poking holes in castles.
holding no punches.
all that cool stuff you did today. None of it matters to us, and that's real stuff.
You wrote a graphic novel?
Not technically, but it is based on one of the greatest characters I ever created. There is a new sheriff on the spinner rack, and his name is Derek Storm.
Now, you've recently just joined the Castle universe because you are adapting Richard Castle's first Derek Storm book into a graphic novel. So how is that process for you, adapting a fictional book by a fictional author into a real graphic novel? How's that challenge been so far?
Well, it was such an odd proposal that I had to accept it. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, here's what's happening. You're going to adapt a novel that doesn't exist anywhere in the universe, but it's an adaptation. It's Marvel Comics adaptation of Richard Castle, the writer who doesn't exist, novel of his character that doesn't exist. Go. And I have not had that challenge
That's
before.
Something you haven't done.
And I'm trying to think, when has this ever been done before? And I couldn't, for the life of me, think of it other than like, you know, some of those Star Wars books that came out after the first movie when there was no mythology yet, you know. But this, doesn't have the meta that this has. So I came up with this should be his Casino Royale. This should be the story of how Derek Storm became
Origin
Derek Storm.
story, yeah.
The origin story,
Moving from PI to the CIA.
Yeah, and so I hit you up with, and make sure you're okay even with that idea.
Yeah.
And make sure that the artist was of the highest caliber, and the package itself was really something special and worth all the work you had put into the meta universe of Castle that surrounds the show.
You know, it's cool to be able to extend the universe and give the fans a different aspect to the storytelling and flesh out the Castle universe.
So
would you reset the audience and just tell them, you know, why there is a Derek Storm novel and what its origins are?
For me, the character of Castle had to come from somewhere, and you know, my feeling is that this is a guy who was enormously successful, but was bored. So when I sat down to create Castle, I gave him a body of work. So I gave him all these Derek Storm novels that were very successful, you know, kind of in the mold of a James Bond PI. Noir James Bond was really, you know, what we talked about. And so they're referenced throughout the series. And as I'm sure many of the fans know, Richard Castle is now writing the novels based upon his adventures with Detective Beckett. He has a character, Nikki Heat. We have 2 novels that have been very successful. The 3rd one comes out in the fall. And so these are real novels available at your local bookstore. So people have been going into the bookstores now asking for the early Derek Storms. They're either truly fanatical fans, or you know, they get the joke. But we felt like there was an appetite for it. We felt like people actually want to fill out the Castle universe. So we had a conversation. We thought the best way to do it, because you know, books were exhausting, and we're doing it with Nikki Heat instead of going back into that universe, to do something new, to do something that capitalizes on the visual fabric of the show as well. And so a graphic novel adaptation, to me, given certainly Nathan's standing in the comic book universe, it felt like probably the best way to extend the world. And I just thought it would be a lot of fun.
But I really am